I'll have you against this wall before you blink. That's what the gunslinger growled, not in anger, but in hunger. Out here in the dusty towns of the frontier, men draw guns fast, but desire burns slower. Caleb Rawlins wasn't the kind of man you trusted. Scarred broad, carrying death in his shadow. But the bartender's daughter, Clara May, she didn't flinch. She stood tall, chin lifted, eyes sparking back at him like she had fire of her own. And that's when things turned dangerous. Not the kind of danger that comes from bullets. No, the kind that coils in your chest, that steals your breath when you don't want it to, that makes you fight yourself harder than you fight anyone else. Because sometimes the deadliest standoff in the West ain't with pistols. It's when a man and a woman can't decide if they're about to kill each other or kiss. Like this story so far, if it's pulling at something in your chest, or if you just love a good Wild West mystery, go ahead and like this video, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you never miss the next chapter. And tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? We love seeing how far these stories ride. Now, back to the tale. In the year 1872, Abilene, Kansas. The town was nothing but dust, lantern light, and the faint sound of boots on old wooden boards. Nights here didn't come quiet. They came alive with the rattle of poker chips, the scrape of chairs across the saloon floor, the creak of wagon wheels fading into darkness. But on this particular night, the noise stilled for just a moment. That was when Caleb Rawlins stepped through the swinging doors. Every man in the saloon looked up, not because they knew his name, but because they recognized his kind. Wide hat pulled low, black duster brushing the ground, eyes like steel that had seen too many deaths. A revolver slung low at his hip. He didn't need to announce himself. Danger carried him like a scent. Men knew to keep their mouths shut when someone like him walked in. But not everyone had sense enough to stay silent. Behind the counter, pouring whiskey into a chip glass, was Clara May Whitfield. Her hair was pinned back with a neatness her father insisted on, though loose strands always escaped, curling around her face. Her blouse was white, the fabric worn soft, sleeves rolled to her elbows. She looked up when he entered, her eyes locking onto his with a mix of curiosity and warning. He noticed her the way a wolf notices the flick of a rabbit's ear in tall grass. Not prey, not exactly, but something alive, something that stirred heat he thought he'd left buried out on the trail. "Whiskey," Caleb said, his voice rough, low, as if gravel had been ground into it. Clara made in rush. She set the glass down, poured slow, the liquid catching lamplight. Her father, Jed Whitfield, stood nearby wiping the bar, his jaw tight. He'd seen that kind of man before, the kind that brought trouble with every step. "First round's on me," Jed muttered, pushing the glass forward. "But drink it and be on your way." Caleb's lips curved, not into a smile, but into something darker. He picked up the glass, swallowed once, set it down harder than he needed to. His eyes never left Clara May's face. "You always talk for her?" he asked. Jed stiffened. Clara May's hands froze, but only for a second. Then she wiped the counter, pretending she didn't feel the weight of his gaze. "I can speak for myself," she said, her voice steady, though her pulse hammered beneath her skin. The corner of Caleb's mouth twitched. Good. It wasn't the word. It was the way he said it. Like he wanted to hear her speak again, like the sound of her voice had already carved a mark somewhere he couldn't shake. The room had gone quiet. Men returned to their drinks, but ears still leaned toward the bar. There was something in the air, sharper than whiskey, hotter than the stove in the back. Clara May finally turned, eyes cutting to him. "You planning to drink all night, or just stare holes through me?" The boldness in her words shocked even herself, but once spoken, she couldn't take them back. Her father muttered her name under his breath, a warning. Caleb leaned closer, elbows on the bar, the smell of leather and smoke clinging to him. "Careful, darling," he said, voice dropping. "I might take staring as an invitation." Her throat tightened. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't joking. Every word he spoke carried weight, as if promises and threats lived in the same breath. She should have turned away, should have ended it there, but her body betrayed her. Her fingers curled tight around a rag in her hand, knuckles whitening, not from fear, but from the sudden, unwanted ache that spread through her chest, lower, hotter, Jed slammed his rag against the counter. "That's enough," he barked. "My daughter's not for your kind." Caleb finally broke eye contact, just long enough to let his gaze flick to the older man. "And what kind's that?" "The kind that don't stay. The kind that leaves wreckage when he rides out." The room thickened with silence again. Clara May's face burned, partly from her father's words, partly from the man standing inches away, still watching her like she was the only thing in this place worth his attention. Caleb straightened, tossed a coin on the counter. "One more," he said, ignoring the warning. Against her better judgment, Clara May poured again. His fingers brushed hers when he took the glass. Calloused, rough but steady, the touch was nothing. Barely a second, but it sent a jolt up her arm, into her chest, into places she didn't want to acknowledge. He saw it. He knew it. That was the worst part. He leaned in again, close enough that only she could hear. "You've got a fire in you. Don't hide it." Her breath hitched. She hated that he could pull that from her with nothing but words. Before she could answer, a commotion erupted at the far table. A ranch hand too drunk to keep his balance slammed his fist down, shouting for more whiskey. Clara May turned quickly, grateful for the distraction. She carried the bottle over, poured, endured his sloppy grin, but the man grabbed her wrist. "Stay a while, sweetheart." Her eyes narrowed. "Let go." He didn't. His grip tightened, his laugh grating. The room stirred, men shifting in their seats. Her father started forward, but Caleb was faster. In 2 strides, he was there, hand clamping on the ranch hand's shoulder. She said, "Let go." The man sneered up at him. "And who are you?" Caleb's fist answered. One sharp crack, and the ranch hand went sprawling. Chairs scraped, voices rose. But Caleb didn't even glance at them. His eyes went back to Clara May, checking her wrist, checking her face, as if the rest of the world had vanished. "You all right?" Her throat worked. "I didn't need your help." He smirked. "Didn't say you did." The heat between them flared again, stronger than before, stronger than sense allowed. For the first time, Clara May felt fear, not of him, but of herself, of what she might let herself feel if she didn't step back. But she didn't step back. That night dragged on, the saloon filling with music, laughter, the clink of glasses. Yet beneath it all, there was a current that never eased. Caleb sat in the corner, eyes on her. He didn't move much, didn't speak often. But whenever she turned, he was there, watching, waiting. And she hated how much she wanted him to keep watching. By the time the lanterns burned low, most men had stumbled home. Jed sent her upstairs, muttering about locking her door, muttering about men like Caleb. She nodded, promised you would. But as she climbed the stairs, she glanced once over her shoulder. Caleb Rawlins was still at the bar, hat shadowing his face, whiskey untouched in his hand. He looked up at her at that exact moment, and the way his eyes held hers, steady, dark, unflinching, made her breath falter, her knees weaken, and a truth sink deep inside her chest. If he called her name, if he growled another word like the one he'd spoken earlier, she knew she would stop. She knew she would turn. And she wasn't sure she'd ever climb those stairs again. The morning sun broke over Abilene with a haze of gold, cutting through the saloon's dusty windows. Clara May stood behind the counter again, sleeves rolled up, hair pulled tighter than the night before, as if neatness could scrub away what lingered in her chest. But neatness did nothing. The memory of those eyes, that low growl, still burned like a coal she couldn't shake. She thought he'd be gone come dawn. Men like Caleb Rawlins didn't linger. They passed through towns like storms, tearing up everything in their path before disappearing on the horizon. But when the door swung open, there he was, his shadow stretched long across the floor, his boots sounding heavy against the planks. He carried himself slower this morning, deliberate, as though each step was chosen for the effect it left behind. And that effect, it landed squarely on her. Clara May's hand tightened on the rag she held. She didn't mean to stare, but she couldn't stop herself. He looked dangerous in the daylight, maybe more than he had under the lamps. His jaw was cut sharp beneath stubble, his mouth set in a line, that suggested he'd never beg for anything in his life. And those eyes, God help her, they pinned her the moment she lifted her head. "You open for business," he said, voice gravel deep. "Looks like it," she replied, sharper than she meant, if only to steady her own pulse. He took a seat at the bar, hat sliding off and landing on the counter. She smelled him then, faint leather mixed with dust and sweat. It was a smell that clung to the plains, but on him it carried something else. Heat, danger, the promise of something reckless. "What'll it be this morning?" she asked, forcing her gaze down at the bottles. "Coffee." His mouth curved. "Or whiskey, if you'd rather pour that." Her throat went dry. It wasn't the words. It was the way he let his eyes travel slow from her face to her collar, down her hands as they worked, as if every inch of her was something he had the right to examine. "Coffee it is," she muttered, setting the pot to pour. As the steam rose, he leaned forward on the counter, folding his hands. "You don't scare easy." She kept her back to him longer than necessary. "Should I?" He chuckled low, dark. "Most women do." She turned, sliding the cup toward him. "Then maybe I ain't most women." The silence stretched. His stare didn't waver, and she swore she felt on her skin, hot as sunlight. The tension between them coiled tighter, like a whip pulled back before the strike. "You're bold," he finally said. "You're cocky," she shot back. His grin spread, wolfish. "That's fair." Her father shuffled down the stairs then, grumbling about stock and accounts. The moment cracked, but only on the surface. Caleb didn't look away from her, not even when Jed barked. "You still here? I told you last night. We don't need your kind hand around." "I'll leave when I'm ready," Caleb replied, calm, even. Jed bristled, but Clara May stepped in, voice quiet but firm. "Pa, let it be. He's just drinking coffee." Jed's eyes narrowed. "And watching you like a hawk while he does it. Don't fool yourself, girl. He's trouble." Her chest tightened. Trouble, yes, but her father didn't know the half of it. The way that trouble wrapped itself around her thoughts, uninvited, unstoppable. By noon, the saloon filled again. Cowboys, drifters, traders, all looking for escape in drink or cards. Caleb stayed. Hours passed, yet he never moved far from that corner table. Always watching, always near. And Clara May, try as she might, couldn't ignore it. Every time she bent to wipe the counter, every time she carried a tray, she felt his gaze. It seared through fabric, through skin, down to something she didn't dare name. By evening, she was raw from it. Her nerves strung tight, her patience frayed. When she finally slammed the glass harder than she should have, Caleb's chair scraped back. He walked slow, deliberate, until he stood at the bar again. "You're wound tight," he said, voice low enough for her alone. Her lips parted. "And whose fault is that?" He leaned in, his breath warm against her ear. "Yours. You keep looking back." Her face flushed hot, fury and desire warring in her chest. "I do not." "You do," he said, and his hand brushed the bar close to hers. Not touching, just close enough that she felt the pull. "And every time, I think about what I'd do if you didn't turn away so fast." Her pulse hammered. The rag slipped from her fingers. She knew she should walk off, knew she should end this before it spiraled. But her feet stayed rooted, her body betraying her will. Jed's shout broke the spell. "Clara May!" She jerked back, heart pounding. Her father's glare swept between her and Caleb. Suspicion thick in his eyes. Upstairs. Now. Clara May opened her mouth to argue, but the weight of Caleb's gaze stopped her. He didn't blink, didn't move, just watched her climb the stairs with that same burning patience. She didn't see him again that night, but when she lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling, she swore she still felt him, his voice curling in her ear, his presence pressed against her ribs. Sleep never came. The next evening, the saloon was busier than she'd ever seen it. Some cattle outfit was in town, pockets heavy with coin, thirst heavier still. Music played loud, boots stomped the floorboards, laughter echoed through smoke. Clara May moved fast, tray balanced in one hand, smile painted on though her mind wasn't in it. She felt him before she saw him. Caleb, leaning against the wall, arms crossed, eyes on her alone. And then it happened. One of the cattlemen, drunk near blind, reached for her as she passed. His hand slid along her hip, bold and filthy. Clara May spun, fury flashing. "Don't you dare." The man grinned, teeth yellow. "Pretty thing like you ought to be friendly." The tray clattered as she shoved him back. Chairs toppled, voices rose. He grabbed her wrist. Pain shot up her arm. But before she could cry out, the rancher's hand was ripped away. Caleb had him by the collar, yanking him clean off his feet. The saloon roared as men scrambled back, eyes wide. Caleb's voice cut low, dangerous enough to chill the room. "Touch her again, and you'll lose the hand." The drunk sputtered, spitting curses, but Caleb's fist silenced him quick. The man hit the floor, groaning, blood spilling from his lip. The room buzzed with whispers, but Caleb didn't hear them. His eyes were on her, only her. "You all right?" Her chest rose, fell faster than she could control. Yes." He stepped closer, too close. His hand brushed the inside of her wrist, checking, steadying. The touch sent sparks racing up her arm. He held her just long enough to make her breath hitch. Then he leaned down, close enough that only she could hear. "You don't have to pretend you don't feel it." Her throat tightened. She hated him for saying it aloud. She hated him more because he was right. Jed stormed forward then, face red with fury. "That's it. You're done here." He shoved at Caleb's chest. "Out!" Caleb didn't move. His eyes never left Clara May. "Say the word," he murmured to her, "and I'll stay." Her lips parted, no sound escaping. Her father shoved again. Caleb stepped back finally, slow, deliberate, hat sliding back onto his head. But before he turned, he said it. The words that would brand themselves into her mind, echoing long after he was gone. "I'll have you against this wall before you blink." The saloon went silent. No one breathed. Then he was gone, boots fading into the night. Clara May stood frozen, heat flooding her chest, her throat, her entire body. Her father's voice called her name, sharp, angry, but she didn't hear it. All she heard was Caleb's promise, growled low, heavy with desire. And she knew, God help her, she wanted him to keep it. The storm rolled in after midnight, not the kind that rattled windows and split the sky with lightning. This one was quieter, steady rain soaking the dirt roads until the whole town seemed hushed under its weight. The saloon stood dark, chairs turned upside down, lanterns snuffed. Upstairs, Clara May tossed beneath her quilt, wide awake, heart pounding with a rhythm that had nothing to do with thunder. She tried to shut out, tried to block the sound of his voice replaying in her mind. "I'll have you against this wall before you blink." She hated him for saying it, hated him worse for how badly she wanted it to come true. The creak of the floorboard downstairs made her jolt upright. For a moment she thought she'd imagined it, just her restless mind conjuring ghosts. But then she heard it again, the slow, certain weight of boots on wood. Her breath caught. She told herself not to move, stay in bed, ignore it, let the night pass. But her body betrayed her, same as always. Bare feet touched the cold floor. Fingers curled around her lantern. She crept to the top of the stairs and peered down. There he was, Caleb Rawlins, hat on the table, coat slung over the back of a chair, shirt clinging damp from the rain. He sat in the glow of a single lantern, gun resting on the bar beside his hand, as if even here, especially here, he couldn't separate himself from violence. But it wasn't the revolver that held her still. It was him. He looked like he belonged in that darkness, like the storm outside had followed him in. His hair hung damp across his forehead, his jaw shadowed rough. His eyes lifted, caught her, and in that instant she knew he'd felt her watching long before she stepped to the rail. "You don't sleep easy," he said, voice low, rumbling. Her throat worked. "And you don't leave when you should." That half smile curved his mouth, but it didn't reach his eyes. Never been good at leaving. She swallowed hard. Every step down the stairs felt like stepping closer to something she couldn't take back. "My father locked the doors. Locks don't keep me out." The words hit her like a strike of heat, dangerous in their certainty. He wasn't bragging. He was confessing. She came closer, lantern trembling slightly in her grip. "You're supposed to be gone." His gaze traveled slow, from her bare feet to the hem of her nightdress, lingering longer than it should have. Her skin prickled under the weight of it, heat flooding where his eyes touched. "If you wanted me gone," he said quietly, "you wouldn't be standing here." Her breath caught, sharp. She wanted to deny it, to throw his words back. But she couldn't, because he was right. "Why are you still here?" she asked instead. He leaned back in the chair, broad shoulders stretching the fabric of his shirt, movements unhurried. "Because I'm not finished." The silence between them thickened. Outside, rain hammered harder against the roof. But inside, the world had narrowed to nothing but the space between her chest and his stare. "Clara!" May set the lantern on the counter. Her hands wouldn't stop trembling, though not from fear. "You think you can just take what you want?" "I don't take," he said, voice low, measured. "I wait till it's given." The words made her shiver. Not because she believed him harmless. No one with eyes like his was harmless. But because there was truth in the way he spoke, as if he'd already decided the moment would come when she'd give in, when she'd break. She turned away, busying herself with the empty glasses still scattered from the night before. Anything to keep her hands from shaking. Anything to stop herself from looking at him. But she felt him rise. The scrape of the chair echoed, boots heavy against the floor. Then silence, closer now, until she knew without looking that he was standing just behind her. Her fingers froze around the glass. Her breath hitched. "You've been fighting it since the first time you saw me," he murmured at her ear. His voice was smoke, curling into her chest, seeping into places she couldn't bar shut. "I see it every time you look my way." Her heart thundered. "You don't know me." "I know enough." The warmth of him pressed closer, not touching, but near enough that she felt the heat radiating from his body, searing to the thin fabric at her back. She should have stepped away. She should have pushed him off. But she stayed rooted, breath shallow, skin alive with fire. "What do you want from me?" she whispered. He growled, soft but raw. "Everything." Her knees weakened. Her hands braced against the counter to steady herself. She hated him. Hated how his words stripped her bare, how he peeled past every defense she tried to raise. Slowly, his hand lifted, rough fingers grazing just above her wrist. Not holding, just tracing. The touch barely there, yet it ignited something deep, something dangerous. She turned then, unable to stand it, unable to breathe with his breath curling at her throat. Their eyes locked, so close she could see the flecks of gray in his irises. So close the air between them burned hotter than fire. "You shouldn't," she breathed. His mouth hovered a breath from hers. "Say stop," he rasped. But the word wouldn't come. The storm crashed outside, thunder rolling over plains. Inside, silence roared louder. Clara May's lips parted, but not for protest. And when his mouth finally crashed onto hers, the world shattered. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't sweet. It was hunger, raw and consuming. Years of restraint and fury poured into one stolen moment. His hand cupped her jaw, rough thumb brushed her cheek as his mouth devoured hers, claiming, demanding. Her own hands betrayed her, clutching at his shirt, pulling him closer instead of pushing him away. The heat of his body pressed against hers, hard and unyielding, pinning her against the counter. When he finally tore back, his breath ragged, his eyes burned down into hers with something feral. "I told you, darling," he growled, voice raw. "I'd have you against this wall before you blink." Her chest heaved, lips swollen, heart racing. She should have slapped him. She should have screamed. Instead, her body leaned forward again, desperate for more. And that was when the footsteps creaked upstairs. Both froze. Clara May's breath caught sharp, terror spiking in her chest. Her father. Caleb's eyes flicked toward the stairs, then back to her, his expression dark with frustration, with need still simmering hot. He stepped back slow, jaw clenched, chest rising heavy. She scrambled to steady herself, fingers trembling as she grabbed the lantern again. Her lips still tingled with the heat of his mouth, her body aching where his touch lingered. Jed's voice called down, rough and half asleep. "Clara May? You down there?" Her throat closed. She forced her voice steady. Just making sure the doors are locked, Pa. A pause. Then the door upstairs creaked shut again. The silence that followed was heavier than thunder. Clara May turned back, but Caleb was already slipping his coat on, hat low, revolver back at his hip. His eyes caught hers one last time. Dark, burning, promising everything and nothing all at once. Then he was gone. The door swung closed, rain swallowing him into the night. Clara May stood there, shaking, heart splitting between fear and want, knowing a line she'd nearly crossed couldn't be untread. Because the truth was clear now. She didn't just want him. She craved him. And craving a man like Caleb Rawlins would ruin her faster than a bullet ever could. The morning after the storm, Clara May moved to the saloon like a ghost. Her father barked orders, rattled off chores, muttered about busted chairs and spilled whiskey, but she barely heard him. Every nerve in her body was still tuned to the memory of Caleb Rawlins. His mouth, his hands, his voice low in her ear. She had pressed her lips together until they burned, as though she could erase the taste he'd left behind. It didn't work. She told herself he would be gone by now. She told herself he had slipped out into the rain for good, left nothing but trouble behind. But trouble had a way of staying. By the time she carried the first tray of drinks across the floor, she felt him before she saw him. That same shift in the air, heavy, charged. And there he was, sitting in the back corner as though the chair belonged to him, hat low, fingers tapping the rim of a whiskey glass he hadn't touched. Clara May faltered. Her pulse slammed so hard she nearly spilled the drinks. He looked up then, slow, deliberate, and his eyes caught hers. The heat of it rooted her in place. Her father's voice snapped her out of it. Girl, move along. She forced herself forward, set the drinks down, forced a smile for the ranchers slapping cards on the table. But the moment she turned, her gaze dragged back to him. Caleb, leaning back in his chair, studying her with the patience of a predator. The rest of the night blurred. She carried trays, wiped counters, laughed when she was supposed to. But her body was taut, her skin alive, because every time she turned he was still there, watching, waiting. When the crowd thinned, she found him at the bar. He hadn't asked for another drink, but she poured one anyway, hands shaking only slightly as she slid across the counter. You don't drink much, she muttered. Don't need to, he said, voice even. I'm already burning. Her heart clenched, breath catching before she could hide it. Stop talking like that, she whispered harshly. Like what? Like you know what I'm feeling. His mouth curved, but it wasn't quite a smile. Don't I? She froze, rag clutched in her hand. He leaned closer then, his arm brushing the counter beside hers, close enough that her sleeve trembled from the heat of his body. Last night wasn't a mistake, he said, low, meant for her alone. And it won't be the last time. Her chest rose, fell too fast. She wanted to deny it, but the words stuck like ash in her throat. A chair scraped hard across the floor. One of the card players staggered up, drunk and wild-eyed, knocking over his glass. Another round, he slurred, slamming a fist on the counter. Clara May jerked back, grateful for the interruption, but Caleb's eyes never left her. She poured quick, set the bottle down, turned to wipe her hands. The drunk leaned too far over the bar, his gaze sliding down her neckline. You're a pretty one, he muttered. Bet a girl like you could keep a man warm through the winter. Clara May stiffened. Drink your whiskey. But his hand shot out, catching her wrist. Her stomach turned, fear twisting sharp, until a shadow fell across them. Caleb's hand clamped down on the man's arm, steel strong, forcing it back. His voice was quiet, dangerous enough to still the room. You'll let go now. The drunk tried to laugh it off, but the sound died when Caleb's grip tightened. His face went pale. All right. He stumbled back, clutching his arm. Caleb didn't move until the man was gone, doors swinging shut behind him. Then his attention returned to Clara May, sharper than ever. How many times am I going to have to stop men from touching you? Her breath shook. I don't need you to protect me. No, he said, softer now. But you want me to. The words hit like a bullet straight through her chest. She dropped the rag, shoved the glass aside, and stormed toward the storeroom, desperate for air, for space. But the footsteps followed, slow, steady, certain. She spun when she reached the shelves, her back to the wall. "You can't keep doing this." He stopped inches away, his presence filling the narrow room. "Doing what?" "Get in my head." Caleb leaned in, hand braced on the wall beside her, caging her in without touching. His breath ghosted her skin, warm and steady. "Darling, I'm not in your head. I'm under your skin." Her pulse raced. His eyes burned into hers, fierce and unrelenting, and her body betrayed her again, leaning closer, craving more. "You should leave," she whispered, though her voice trembled. "Say it like you mean it." Her lips parted, no sound escaping, because she couldn't. Not when his nearness sent shivers spiraling down her spine. Not when the scent of leather and smoke wrapped around her. Not when every part of her screamed for what she wasn't allowed to want. He reached for her then, not rough, not forceful, just his fingertips brushing along her jaw, tilting her face toward his. The gentleness was worse than violence. It stripped her bare, left her trembling. "Tell me you don't want this," he murmured. Her eyes fluttered shut, her breath breaking against his mouth. But no denial came. The silence stretched heavy, charged, until his lips brushed hers again. Softer this time, slow and deliberate. She melted before she could stop herself, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. The kiss deepened, raw, hungry, and she was lost. The wall pressed into her back, his body pressed into her front, heat searing every inch of her. She gasped against his mouth, and his growl vibrated through her chest. Then, "Clara May!" Her father's voice thundered from the saloon. She tore back, breath ragged, lips swollen. Caleb's eyes burned down into hers. Frustration and desire tangled in every line of his face. "You can't keep coming back here," she gasped, chest heaving. "Yes, I can," he said, steady, certain. "And I will." The door creaked. Jed's footsteps thudded closer. Clara May shoved at Caleb's chest, desperate. He caught her wrist for half a second, thumb brushing over the pounding vein there, before he released her and slipped into the shadows. Jed's face appeared in the doorway, suspicion etched deep. "You all right, girl?" Clara May forced her breath steady. Just fetching more bottles." Her father's gaze swept the room, but Caleb was gone. He nodded gruffly and turned back toward the bar. Clara May sagged against the wall, shaking. Her lips still tingled, her body still ached, and the truth clawed at her chest. It wasn't just desire anymore. It was need. Raw, relentless, terrifying need. She pressed her hand to her mouth, as if that could erase him, erase the hunger he left burning in her veins. But deep down, she knew there was no erasing Caleb Rawlins. Because he was right. He wasn't in her head. He was under her skin. And he wasn't leaving. The town looked ordinary enough in the morning light. Wagons rattled down the main street. Kids chased dogs through the dust, and women hung laundry on sagging lines. But inside Clara May, nothing was ordinary anymore. She woke with her lips still tingling, her heart hammering like she'd spent the night running. The ghost of Caleb's mouth haunted her skin, every breath reminding her how close she'd come to losing herself completely. She scrubbed her face, tied her apron, braided her hair tight, as though she could bind herself back into the woman she was supposed to be. But when she stepped out into the saloon, she knew. He was there. She didn't need to see him. The weight of him hit her, like smoke in her lungs. And there he was, sitting at the far table, hat shadow in his eyes, watching her like she was the only thing keeping him alive. Her pulse jumped. She turned her back quickly, busying herself with bottles, rags, glasses. But she fell to move before she heard the boots on the floor. She gripped the counter, knuckles white, as he came up behind her. Mourning, his voice brushed against her ear, low, calm, too intimate. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. "Where else would I be?" She whirled, ready to snap, but he was too close. His chest brushed hers, his breath caught her cheek, and the fight drained right out of her knees. "You're gonna ruin me," she said, shaking. "No," he murmured, lifting her chin with one callous finger. "I'm gonna make you honest about what you want." Her father's cough split the air. Clara may jerk back, Caleb turning slow, controlled, as if nothing had happened. Jed's eyes narrowed from across the room, suspicion flashing in his frown. "Girl," he barked, "fetch more wood from the shed." Clara May wiped her hands, heart rattling, and hurried outside. The shed sat behind the saloon, half-rotted boards creaking in the breeze. She shoved the door open, thankful for the cool dark, thankful to be alone. But she wasn't alone. Caleb slipped in after her, silent as a shadow, shutting the door with a click. "Have you lost your damn mind?" she hissed, dropping the wood she hadn't even picked up yet. His eyes gleamed in the dim light. Maybe. Her back hit the wall before she realized he'd closed the space between them. His hand braced beside her head, his body pinning her in place without touching. "Every time you walk away," he said, voice rough, "I want you more. Every time you look at me like you're burning alive but too proud to ask for water, I damn near lose myself." She tried to keep her breathing steady, but his words struck like firebrands. "Don't," she whispered. "If my father finds out, then I'll deal with him. You don't understand." He cut her off, his forehead pressing against hers, their lips inches apart. "I understand more than you think. You want me, and I..." His voice cracked for the first time, heat laced with something rawer. "I've never wanted anything like this." Her hands trembled at her sides. She should push him away. She knew it, but her body betrayed her, lifting, clutching his shirt, dragging him down to her. The kiss was nothing like the night before. It wasn't cautious. It wasn't tentative. It was hunger, pure and desperate, years of loneliness colliding in one reckless collision. His hands found her waist, strong, unyielding, pulling her against him until she felt every line of him, every ounce of danger he carried. Her fingers dug into his chest, her breath breaking against his mouth as the world outside disappeared. The shed groaned with the storm they were making, with rattling under their weight. She gasped as his lips trailed her throat, fire racing down her spine. "Caleb!" she breathed, half warning, half plea. He lifted his head, eyes dark, chest heaving. "Say stop, Clara. Say it, and I'll walk away." She couldn't. The word wouldn't come. Her silence was louder than any confession. He kissed her again, deeper, and she gave in, every ounce of restraint shattering. But fate wasn't merciful. Boot steps crunched outside. Her father's voice barked, closer this time. "Girl, you gathering wood or taking a nap?" Clara May shoved Caleb back, panic clawing her chest. He caught her wrist, eyes blazing, but she shook her head hard. "Go!" For a heartbeat, he didn't move. Then he vanished into the shadows like smoke, slipping out the back of the shed. Clara May grabbed the nearest log, clutching like a lifeline as Jed's figure filled the doorway. "Thought I heard something," he muttered, eyes darting. "You in here alone?" She forced a nod, throat dry. Jed grunted, grabbed a piece of wood himself, and left. Clara May's knees buckled the second he was gone. She pressed a hand to her mouth, heart hammering, body still trembling from Caleb's touch. It couldn't keep happening. It couldn't. And yet, she knew it would. That night, when the saloon quieted and the lamps burned low, she stepped outside for air. The moon hung silver over the ridge, the silence of the plains stretching out endless. And then she heard it, a low whistle, soft but sharp, the kind of man used to call a horse or a woman. She turned. Caleb leaned against a rail, shadows wrapping him like a cloak. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, the words weak even to her own ears. "Seems like that's all you ever tell me." He pushed off the rail, slow, deliberate, and came toward her. She backed up until the wall of the saloon caught her spine. Her breath caught, her chest rising fast as he stopped close enough for her heart to stumble. "I can't stay away," he said, voice low, steady. "You don't want me to." Her hands trembled against the wood. She hated how true it was. He reached for her, brushing a strand of hair from her face, his thumb grazing her cheek. The gentleness unraveled her more than force ever could. "Clara May," he murmured, "you're mine. You feel it. You know it." Her lips parted, but she couldn't argue. The truth hung heavy between them. When his mouth claimed hers again, she didn't resist. The kiss was deep, scorching, the kind that made her knees weak, her body betray every ounce of caution. His hands framed her face, tilting her just so, like he was memorizing her. She broke only long enough to whisper against his lips, "If my father catches us, then he'll know I don't scare easy." Her laugh was shaky, desperate, and it broke into another kiss. His body pressed against hers, heat searing through layers of cloth, every nerve sparking like wildfire. The sound of boots scuffed the dirt again, closer this time. Clara May shoved him back, breathless. "Go," she hissed. He caught her chin, forced her to look at him. "This ain't over." And then he was gone, melting into the night, leaving her trembling in the shadows, lips swollen, heart pounding. Clara May pressed a hand over her chest, fighting for breath. She knew she was falling, knew it was dangerous, reckless, maybe even ruin. But the truth was clear as the stars burning above. She didn't want to stop falling. The night air carried the smell of dust and whiskey, the hum of crickets buried beneath the creak of the saloon's swinging doors. Clara May had told herself she wouldn't look for him, wouldn't listen for the scrape of his boots or the shift in the crowd that always meant Caleb Rawlins had entered the room. But lies, she'd learned, were easier whispered in the dark than lived in the light. And when he stepped inside, she felt it before she saw him. The air shifted, her chest tightened. He took his place at the end of the bar, hat low, shoulders broad, every inch of him carved with that same restless danger. He didn't order a drink. He didn't need to. He just waited, eyes fixed on her as though there was no one else alive in Dawson Ridge. Clara May tried to busy her hands. She scrubbed the counter until the wood gleamed. She refilled glasses without being asked. She laughed at ranchers' jokes, too sharp, too high. But when she finally dared to glance his way, her body betrayed her. Heat flushed her cheeks. Her knees weakened. She carried a tray past him, and his hand brushed her skirt, just a graze. But her pulse skittered wild. Her breath caught hard, and when she looked at him, he was already watching her mouth. The crowd thinned with the hours, the piano falling silent, the smoke settling. Her father stumbled up the stairs, muttering about early mornings, leaving her to douse the lamps. Clara May wiped her palms on her apron, forcing calm, knowing she wasn't alone. Caleb hadn't moved. When the last lamp dimmed, she turned, and he was there, leaning against the bar, arms crossed, gaze fixed. "You stay any longer, folks start talking," she whispered, though her voice trembled. "Let him." His tone was low, gravel thick with intent. "Caleb." Her protest died on her tongue when he stepped forward. The silence between them snapped taut. She felt the heat of him before his hands touched her. When they did, gripping her waist, pulling her flush against him, it was like striking flint. Her back hit the counter. Her breast shuddered, and then his mouth was on hers. The kiss was fire and hunger, no restraint left. She clutched his shirt, pulling him closer, closer, until there was no space, no air, only him. His hands roamed her sides, her hips, claiming her with a roughness that made her knees buckle. "You drive me mad," he muttered against her lips. Her laugh broke, desperate. "You think you don't do the same to me?" His growl vibrated against her chest, his lips trailing down her throat. Her head tipped back, a helpless gasp escaping, and she hated herself for how badly she needed him. "We can't," she tried. "We already are." His teeth grazed her skin, and she shivered hard. Her apron fell loose under his hands, fabric tangling at her waist. The saloon felt too quiet, too still. The world narrowed to the pounding of her heart and the burn of his touch. For a moment, panic clawed at her. What if her father came back? What if someone walked in? But then Caleb's mouth claimed hers again, deep and bruising, and fear was swallowed by need. She wanted him. God help her! She wanted him. He lifted her onto the counter, spreading her knees with a firm grip, stepping into the space between. She wrapped her arms around his neck, dragging him down to her, and the kiss turned wild. Every nerve burned. Every inch of her ached. She'd never been kissed like this, never been touched like this, never felt so alive and undone all at once. Her whisper broke against his ear, raw and trembling. "If we do this, there's no turning back." His breath was ragged, his hands gripping her like a man clinging to salvation. Good. I don't want to turn back. And then there was no more hesitation. The counter rattled beneath them, glasses shivering, her breath shattering with each kiss. His hands mapped her like he'd been waiting his whole life. His body pressed tight to hers as though he could fuse them together. She clung to him, nails digging into his shoulders. Every ounce of resistance burned away. The world outside ceased to exist. No father, no townsfolk, no rules. Just two bodies tangled in fire they could no longer smother. But passion, like gunfire, carried risk. The door creaked. Clara May froze, lips parted, body rigid. Caleb still too, eyes blazing into hers, both of them holding their breath. The door swung wider, boots scuffing across the floor. Clara May's heart slammed like a drum, terror and desire colliding in her chest. Then, the voice. Not her father. A ranch hand, muttering drunk to himself, weaving toward the stairs. Caleb didn't move. His hands stayed locked on her hips, his body pressed against hers, waiting. The man staggered up, door closing behind him, silence crashing back down. Clara May exhaled hard, trembling. We can't keep tempting fate like this. Caleb's lips brushed her jaw, his voice steady. Fate can go to hell. And with that, he kissed her again. Fierce. Final. Clara May's mind spun, her body burning. But deep down she knew. This wasn't some passing hunger. This was ruin. Because men like Caleb Rawlins didn't belong in quiet towns, and daughters like her didn't survive loving them. Yet even as a thought crossed her mind, her hands tangled in his hair, pulling him closer still. Whatever storm was coming, she would meet it head on, because she couldn't stop. She didn't want to stop. And maybe neither did he. The town knew. Clara May felt in the way the women's eyes cut sharp when she passed, in the way the ranch hands smirked over their glasses, in the way silence grew too fast when she entered a room. Rumors traveled quicker than bullets in Dawson Ridge, and once they started, there was no stopping them. She tried to steady herself behind the bar, tried to serve whiskey with the same smile, the same laugh. But every time she looked up, Caleb was there, at his table in the corner, hat low, hands loose, gaze burning steady on her like he didn't give a damn who saw. And maybe he didn't. Her father slammed bottles harder than he needed to, his jaw grinding, his eyes narrowing each time Caleb came near. Clara May knew what was coming. She could feel it in her bones. The storm broke that night. Jed caught them in the storeroom. She'd gone in to fetch another crate of whiskey. Caleb followed, silent, heat and hunger crackling between them. She knew it was foolish, reckless, but she didn't push him away when his hands closed on her hips, when his mouth claimed hers in the dim light. The door crashed open. Jed stood there, face red, hand already reaching for the shotgun propped against the wall. "You filthy bastard," he roared. "And you!" His gaze seared into his daughter, betrayal sharp as a knife. "You ain't my Clara May no more. You're ruined." Caleb stepped in front of her, hand hovering near his holster. His voice was calm, but deadly. "Put the gun down, Jed. Put it down." Jed's laugh was wild, broken. "I'll put you in the ground." He leveled the shotgun. Clara May screamed, shoving at Caleb's arm, but he didn't move. His eyes locked on Jed's, unflinching, cold. The silence stretched. 3 people breathing, one heartbeat between life and death. Then the door burst wider. Men poured in. The ranch hands, the drunks, the ones who'd been watching, whispering. Some held bottles, some knives, 1 or 2 with pistols gleaming. The saloon filled with a thick, dangerous hum. "Looks like the girls pick her outlaw," one man drawled. "Ain't proper, Jed. You gonna let him shame your name?" Jed's grip tightened on the gun. His face twisted. He won't leave the saloon alive. Caleb's hand dropped to his revolver. "Then you best pull that trigger quick." The first shot cracked the air. Chaos exploded. Clara May dove as glass shattered, as the shotgun boomed, as pistols barked fire. Caleb pulled her down behind the counter, bullets splintering with inches above their heads. The saloon turned battlefield, smoke and screams filling the air. "Stay down," Caleb barked, vaulting over the counter. gun already firing. Clara May clutched her chest, trembling, as she watched him move like the storm itself. Every shot deliberate, every step sure. Men fell, chairs toppled, the piano clanged with stray lead. Jed roared Caleb's name and came charging. Shotgun reloaded, face twisted with fury. Caleb spun, firing. The blast caught Jed's shoulder, spinning him back. But the old man didn't fall. He staggered, blood painting his sleeve, and lifted the gun again. Clara May cried out, "Pa, stop." Jed's eyes burned into hers, wild and broken. "You ain't my daughter. Not no more." The words gutted her. Caleb's shot came an instant before Jed's finger squeezed. The bullet struck true, dead center. Jed dropped the gun. His body swayed once, twice, then crumpled to the floor. Silence crashed down like a hammer. The gunfire ceased. The ranch hands froze, eyes wide. The only sound was Clara May's ragged sobs as she crawled to her father's side. "Pa!" Her hands shook, pressing against the blood blooming across his chest. But it was no use. His eyes were already glassy, his chest still. Caleb's shadow fell across them. His revolver smoked, his breath hard. For a moment, he looked down at Jed, jaw set, eyes dark with something Clara May couldn't read. Then his gaze shifted to her. Clara May. She looked up, tears streaking her face. Her body trembled, torn in two. Around them, the men backed away, muttering, their bravado shattered. No one wanted to test the gunslinger who just killed Jed Mercer in his own saloon. One by one, they slipped out the door until the room was empty but for the three of them. Clara May pressed her forehead to her father's chest, her sobs quieting into shudders. When she finally looked up, her eyes burned. "You killed him," she whispered. Caleb holstered his gun, voice steady. "He left me no choice. He was my father. He was going to put you in the ground to get to me." She staggered to her feet, wiping her face, trembling all over. Her eyes locked on his, pain and fury colliding with the same desperate hunger that haunted her for weeks. "I can't forgive you," she said, voice breaking. "I don't want forgiveness." He stepped closer, his hand reaching, then dropping. "I want you." Her breath hitched. Tears blurred her vision. She hated him. She wanted him. She couldn't breathe without him. But the truth was carved in blood at their feet. Nothing would ever be the same. She backed away, shaking her head. "If I stay with you, Caleb, all I'll ever have is ruin." He didn't follow. He just stood there, chest rising, eyes burning steady on hers. "Then let me be your ruin," he said. The words hung heavy in the smoke-thick air. Clara May's heart twisted, breaking. She turned, stepping over her father's body, and pushed through the saloon doors into the night. The town was quiet, the moon pale, the world forever changed. Behind her, the outlaws she couldn't stop wanting stood alone among the wreckage. And though her steps carried her away, the truth burned clear in her chest. No matter how far she ran, Caleb Rawlins was under her skin, and ruin had never felt so much like love. If this tale gripped you, the danger, the heat, the heartbreak, don't just ride off yet. There are more stories of the Wild West where passion burns hotter than gunfire, and love cuts deeper than any bullet. Hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell, and stay with us for the next ride. Because out here, every outlaw's got a secret, every town's got a sin, and every story leaves a scar.